In previous lessons, we've worked with conditions that evaluate to either true or false value. But what if I told you that in Python, almost any value can be treated as true or false? That's what we call Truthy and Falsy values. In this lesson, we'll explore how Python determines whether a value is considered true or false in a condition. Every value has a Boolean interpretation, either true or false. A truthy value is anything that Python considers true, while a falsy value is anything that Python considers false. Alright? So, Python considers these as falsy values. We have none. None represents no value in Python. We have zero values, either 0, 0.0 or complex 0. So all those, they are falsy values. We have empty collections like empty string. Empty string we evaluate to false. Empty list, we get to that, evaluate to false. Empty dictionary, we also get to that in later lessons, evaluate to false. And empty tuple evaluates to false. An empty set evaluates to false. Don't bother about all these data types that we've not dealt with, but at least we've dealt with string. So an empty string evaluates to false. The Boolean false itself, it also evaluates to false. We can see all this in action. Okay, so let's print. Okay, so we have the bool function that converts other data type to Boolean. So now let's see none. Now we are converting none to a Boolean value, either true or false. So now we want to use the bool function to convert. Okay, so we have what? We have false. All right, so also if we have 0, 0 also evaluates to false. If we run that now, what do we have? We have false. Okay, so the next one, let's try an empty string. Okay, so if we run that, what do we have? We have false. If we also try an empty list, don't bother about this yet. You don't know what a list is yet, I assume. So let's run this. We also have false. So all these, they are falsy values. It is not only the Boolean value of false that Python considers as false. All these none, 0, empty string, all these empty collections like list, dictionary, tuple, set, all of these, they are considered to be falsy values. All right. So outside of this falsy value, everything else is considered truthy, including non-zero numbers. Let's say we have 42. So 42 is going to evaluate as true. If we run this now, that's going to evaluate as true. Even if it is -1 or any negative number, it's also going to evaluate as true. Only 0 or 0.0 evaluates as false. Okay, even if it is a float, let's say, or 3.2, let's run that, it also evaluates to true. Okay, so other types of data, other data type also evaluates to true. So far they are not empty. Let's say we have a string of let's say we have hello. Hello also evaluate as true. Only empty string evaluate as false. Okay, also the Boolean true, true itself evaluate as true. Let's say we write true, so that's also going to evaluate to true. All right. Okay, so Python uses the concept of truthy or falsy in conditional statements. This concept of truthy or falsy is very important in Python, especially when you are dealing with conditional statements. Python uses the concept of truthy and falsy in conditional statements to determine whether a block of code should run or not. For example, let's say we are getting an input from a user. So let's say we want to get the name of our user. We can say input. Okay, so we are going to tell the user to enter your name. Okay, so we have colon. All right. Okay, now if the user provides a name, then this variable of name is going to hold the name of the user. If the user does not provide any name, that means this is going to be an empty string. So we are going to say if, okay, we're going to say if name is true. So that means if the user provide a name, so we are going to print, going to say welcome. We can add the name of our user using curly braces. So we can say name. All right. So this is going to be an F string. Okay. Else. So if the user does not provide any name, so we can say else. Okay. So we're going to print you did not enter any name. Okay, now let's run this and see what we have. Enter your name. Let's say I'm not providing any name, so you can say you did not enter any name. But let's not need again. As soon as I provide a name, let's say Toyosi, and provide my first name, so you can say welcome Toyosi. The reason why this line of code was executed is because by the time Python asked for my name and I provided Toyosi, so Toyosi will be assigned to the variable of name. That makes name to be true because any string is a Truthy value except that string is empty. So only empty string is false in terms of string. So for example, if just like we see in our first example, now if I do not provide any answer, if I just press enter without provide anything, let me run it again. Okay, so I will not provide anything. Let me press enter now. So as you can see, I do not provide any name. That means name is going to be an empty string, and empty string is a false value. So this line of code will not be executed because this condition is not true. Then we are going to move on to this line of code. We do not enter any name. So you take note that Python uses Truthy and Falsy value to determine which block of code should be executed in a conditional statement. Okay, so let's say, okay, let's just put 0 here. So we are going to say if 0, as you can see the prompt, you say this code is unreachable because the condition is forever false because 0 is a Falsy value. So PyCharm is telling us that this code is unreachable because this condition will forever and never be false. Okay, if we put an empty string, this is also an unreachable line of code because this condition will forever and ever be false. If you run this now, okay, so enter your name. There's even no need of providing any name. You did not enter any name because the condition here is an empty string, which is a Falsy value. Also, we can apply the concept of Truthy or Falsy to provide default values for missing data. For example, now that, okay, let's return this back to the original shape, okay? So for example, we want to get the name of our user, okay? So we are going to say if the user does not provide any name, then we are going to use the OR logical operator to provide a default value. So we can say if the user does not provide any name, we can just assign guest to our user as the name. Okay, so now we are using the concept of Truthy to provide a default value. If the user provide an input, that means this will be Truthy. Okay, so that means this line of code will be executed. All right, but if the user does not provide any name, that means this input is going to provide a Falsy output. That means guest is going to be the default name of our user. So this will also be true, but we are going to have welcome guest. Okay, so let's run this and see what we have. So enter your name. If I do not enter any name, let me press enter. So you can see welcome guest. So we use the concept of Truthy to provide a default value. We call this short circuit operation. Okay, so let me give you a tip. If you are unsure if a value is either Truthy or Falsy, you can use the bool function, okay? The bool function that I used earlier. So you can use this function to check if the value is Truthy or Falsy if you are not sure. However, this is just for test case. You don't need to overuse bool in your code. Python already evaluates truthiness in conditions to avoid redundant checks. So Python is automatically going to check for the truthiness or falsiness of a value. If the value is Truthy, it executes your code accordingly. If it is Falsy, it executes your code accordingly. So you don't have to overuse the Boolean check. Okay, so for example, let's say we don't know if our name, if name, let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this, okay? So for example, we don't know if name is Truthy or Falsy. So we are now saying, we are now putting this in a Boolean function to check if it is either true or false. This is just a redundant code because Python will automatically check if name has a value, then that is Truthy. If it doesn't have any value, if it is empty string, that is false, then it moves on to this block. So this is just a redundant check. You can only do this check possibly if you are not sure. So you don't need to be writing this in your code. You can just use that as a test when you are developing your program. All right, so if I run this now, this is going to perform the same function as what we have earlier. So if I say my name is Toyosi, okay, so we have welcome Toyosi. If I run this again and I do not provide any value, so you did not enter any name. So doing this check in your code is redundant. Python will automatically check for the truthiness or falsiness of your value. So in the next lesson, we'll explore nested conditional statements, how to handle multiple layers of decisions in your programs. All right, so I will see you in the next lesson.